I spent 60 years of my life building monuments. My name is Eleanor. I'm 82 years old, and I only just realized that everything I thought mattered didn't matter at all. I was the kind of woman people noticed. I made sure of it. Valedictorian at 17, youngest department head at the university by 34, published author by 40. I gave lectures in rooms that seated hundreds. My students would write me letters years later saying I changed their lives. I kept every single one of those letters in a leather box on my desk. I used to take them out sometimes just to remind myself that I had done something worthwhile, that when I was gone, people would remember Professor Eleanor Hartwell. My husband David used to joke that I collected accomplishments the way other people collected stamps. He said it gently, the way he said most things, but I could hear the question underneath it. "What are you so afraid of, Ellie?" I never answered him because I didn't know. Or maybe I did know and didn't want to say it out loud. I was afraid of disappearing, of being ordinary, of living a whole life and leaving nothing behind but a name on a headstone that nobody visits. So I worked. I published. I mentored. I said yes to every speaking engagement, every committee, every award ceremony. David would be sitting at the dinner table with a book, and I'd be upstairs writing another article nobody really needed. Our daughter Amy learned early not to interrupt me when my office door was closed. I told myself I was setting an example for her, showing her what a woman could achieve. But if I'm honest, I was just afraid that if I stopped achieving, I'd have to face the possibility that I was nothing special at all. David died 4 years ago, pancreatic cancer, 6 months from diagnosis to gone. Toward the end, when he couldn't get out of bed anymore, he'd hold my hand and tell me stories I'd heard a dozen times before. The day we met at that awful faculty mixer. The trip we took to Maine where it rained the entire week and we never left the cabin. The morning Amy was born, and how I cried because I was so terrified I'd fail at being a mother the way my own mother had failed at being present. One afternoon, maybe 2 weeks before he passed, he was drifting in and out of sleep, and he opened his eyes and looked at me with this clarity that startled me. He said, "Ellie, do you know what I'm going to miss most?" I thought he was going to say something profound, something I could hold on to. But he just said, "Saturday mornings, when you'd make pancakes and burn them every single time, and we'd eat them anyway and pretend they were perfect." I didn't understand what he meant. I said, "David, we did so many things. We traveled, we built careers, we raised a daughter." And he smiled, that sad, gentle smile he had, and he said, "I know, sweetheart, but the pancakes were the part that was just ours." He died 12 days later. I delivered his eulogy to a room full of colleagues and former students and people whose names I barely remembered. I talked about his contributions to the field, his dedication to teaching, his legacy of scholarship. I did not mention the pancakes. After he was gone, I tried to go back to normal. I accepted a keynote at a conference in Boston. I started drafting another book, but something had shifted. I'd be sitting at my desk, staring at the screen, and I'd think about what David said. The pancakes were the part that was just ours. And I'd feel this hollow ache in my chest that no amount of productivity could fill. Amy came to visit about a year after David passed. She's 46 now, married, 2 kids of her own. We were sitting in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I used to burn those pancakes, and she was telling me about her son's science fair project. I was half listening, thinking about an email I needed to send, when she stopped mid-sentence and said, "Mom, do you remember anything about my childhood?" The question caught me off guard. "Of course I do," I said. She nodded slowly, then asked, "Like what?" And I started listing things. Your piano recital when you were 9, the summer you went to space camp, your high school graduation speech, all the big moments, the accomplishments. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I don't remember most of those things the way you do. You know what I remember? I remember the time we got lost driving to the lake and you started singing that ridiculous song to make me stop crying. I remember you reading me the same book every night for a year because I was obsessed with it, even though you must have been so bored. I remember when I broke my arm and you slept in the hospital chair next to me, even though the nurses said you didn't have to." I sat there looking at my daughter, this fully formed person I had somehow raised while barely paying attention, and I realized she was giving me the same gift David had tried to give me. She was telling me that the things I thought didn't matter were the only things that did. That night, I went up to my office and I looked at that leather box full of letters from students. I read through some of them. They were kind, grateful, full of praise for my teaching and my guidance. But they were letters about Professor Hartwell, not about me, not about Eleanor. And I understood then that I had spent 60 years trying to be remembered by people who didn't actually know me. I stopped writing the book. I resigned from the committees. I didn't give any more lectures. People were concerned. My colleagues thought I was depressed, grieving too hard. But I wasn't depressed. For the first time in my life, I was paying attention to what was actually in front of me. I started calling Amy every Sunday, not to catch up on accomplishments, but just to talk. I asked her about the small things, what she made for dinner, what her kids were into that week, how she was really doing. I visited more. I sat on the floor and played with my grandchildren. I learned their favorite bedtime stories and read them the same books over and over, and I didn't mind. I joined a quilting group at the library. I'd never quilted in my life, had always thought it was beneath my capabilities somehow. But I went, and I was terrible at it, and nobody cared. We just sat and stitched and talked about nothing important, and it was the most meaningful thing I'd done in years. Last month, my granddaughter Sadie, she's 7, she made me a drawing. It was me and her holding hands under a tree. She wrote at the bottom in that crooked child handwriting, "Grandma Ellie is my favorite person." She spelled favorite wrong. I have that drawing on my refrigerator now. I look at it every morning, and I feel more proud of that misspelled sentence than I ever felt about any award or publication or standing ovation. I think about David a lot. I wish I could tell him that I finally understand. The pancakes were the part that was just ours, because they weren't for anyone else. They weren't building toward anything. They weren't a performance or a line on a resume. They were just two people who loved each other, burning breakfast together on a Saturday morning, and that was enough. I don't know if anyone will remember me when I'm gone. Maybe Amy will tell her kids some stories. Maybe Sadie will remember the afternoons we spent reading books and making up silly voices for the characters. But honestly, it doesn't frighten me anymore the way it used to, because I've stopped trying to build monuments and I've started trying to live in the moments that monuments can never capture. If you're listening to this and you're young, younger than I am now, still trying to prove something, still afraid of being forgotten, I want to tell you something I wish someone had told me. You will be forgotten. Maybe not by everyone, but by most people. And sooner than you think. The students I taught won't remember my lectures in 20 years. The articles I published are already outdated. The awards are in a box somewhere in my daughter's attic. But Sadie will remember that her grandma held her hand under that tree. Amy will remember the ridiculous song I sang when we were lost. And somewhere, in whatever comes after this, I think David is smiling about those terrible pancakes. Your life isn't the story other people tell about you after you're gone. It's the collection of small, ordinary moments you actually lived, the hand you held, the laugh you shared, the Saturday morning you didn't try to be impressive or important or remembered. You were just there, completely there, burning the pancakes with someone you loved. That's what I learned at 82. I stopped trying to be remembered. And for the first time in my life, I started living like I was already enough.